Welcome to this explainer. Okay, picture this. One day you're managing a totally stable, predictable team, and literally the next day, a massive generative AI update just completely rewrites your entire industry's business model. Wild, right? If you're feeling that intense whiplash right now, the constantly shifting markets, the endless digital noise, the insane pressure to just adapt overnight, listen, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we are unpacking a framework that was designed specifically to make sense of all this chaos. We call it Psychotech Leadership, the blueprint for future human transformation. We're going to look at exactly how the rules of the game have completely changed, and more importantly, how you can step up to become exactly the kind of leader this wild new era demands.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with Section 1, the end of traditional leadership, and then define the new paradigm in Section 2, what is Psychotech leadership? After that, we'll break down the three core pillars: mastering the human element, engineering the future, and execution, growth, and legacy. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the daily leadership blueprint. Let's get right into it.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the end of traditional leadership and why the old model is totally failing us.
Let's be real for a second. The rise of behavioral science, digital transformation, and artificial intelligence has fundamentally broken the traditional management playbook. The skills that got leaders to the top 10 years ago, they are definitely not the skills that'll keep them there tomorrow. We are literally living in the most psychologically demanding and technologically disruptive era in human history. Think about the manager trying to coordinate a hybrid team across 3 different time zones, dealing with a constant barrage of Slack notifications, all while upper management is demanding a comprehensive AI integration strategy by, Friday. You simply can't manage this kind of human complexity, the rampant burnout, the deep uncertainty, the emotional instability, with just a basic spreadsheet and a rigid list of demands. It just doesn't work anymore.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how clear the battle lines are between the past and the future. The old leadership model, it was built entirely on authority, hierarchy, and control. It was basically all about supervising tasks. But today, merely managing tasks has been completely replaced by the urgent need to actually architect human behavior. We need leaders who truly understand psychology, who can navigate complex AI ecosystems, and who can drive teams forward with deep, genuine purpose. So what does architecting human behavior actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon? Well, it looks like recognizing when your team is completely paralyzed by a massive new software rollout, having the awareness to actively pause the strict deadlines, and addressing that underlying anxiety before pushing for productivity.
That brings us perfectly to Section 2. What is Psychotech leadership? Let's look at this new paradigm.
Since traditional management is so clearly broken, this is the paradigm that steps in to solve the chaos. Psychotech leadership is the science and the art of combining psychology, technology, emotional intelligence, strategic execution, and conscious leadership to create truly extraordinary outcomes. It's this deep, highly intentional integration. Imagine a traditional leader reacting to a sudden supply chain failure. They might immediately start yelling at vendors or demanding overtime from an already exhausted staff. Now, picture a psychotech leader. They act like a lighthouse. They use technology to quickly assess the data for sure, but they use psychology to project calm, stabilize the team's emotions, and pivot the strategy without causing total panic. They're emotional stabilizers and innovation catalysts, all rolled into one.
Moving right along to Section 3, mastering the human element. We're talking EQ, empathy, and psychological safety.
Here's the thing we have to recognize. While traditional IQ is fantastic for building systems, it's emotional intelligence that actually builds people. A psychotech leader operates on this core principle. You absolutely must master emotions to master execution. Think of it as emotional intelligence 2.0. Imagine a scenario where the market suddenly crashes, or maybe a major competitor launches a super disruptive product. Naturally, panic sets in, right? A traditional response might be super impulsive, slashing budgets out of fear or wildly pivoting the strategy. But a psychotech leader? They respond consciously. By practicing deep listening and strict emotional regulation, they absorb that shockwave. They keep it from hitting the team, which fosters incredible loyalty and ultimately leads to way clearer decision-making.
And this emotional mastery is the very foundation of what we call strategic empathy. It's a formula. Empathy, leading to clarity, combined with accountability, equals sustainable leadership. Listen, psychotech leadership is absolutely not about some weak, boundaryless empathy where standards just disappear because people are stressed. No way. It is highly strategic. There's this vital dynamic tension at play. You have to care deeply about the human beings on your team. You have to understand their roadblocks and their burnout.
But at the exact same time, you have to hold them absolutely accountable to the organization's goals. When you can look an employee in the eye and say, hey, I understand exactly how difficult this transition is, and I've got your back, but we still need to hit this milestone, man, that is how you build unparalleled, long-term credibility.
But here's the catch. You really can't have true empathy without a solid foundation of safety. And that brings us to becoming a psychological safety builder. Fear kills creativity. Fear destroys innovation. Fear completely weakens execution. People perform at their absolute best when fear completely disappears from the workplace. Think about this. Research actually shows that medical teams with the highest error reporting rates usually make the fewest catastrophic mistakes. Why? Because they feel safe enough to catch and fix those problems early without fear of retaliation. When you make open communication your culture, and when inevitable failures are treated as fascinating lessons rather than punishable offenses, you unlock the kind of creative confidence that drives massive, game-changing innovation.
Okay, Section 4, Engineering the Future. Let's dig into foresight, resilience, and innovation.
So now that we've stabilized the human element, we've got to look ahead. Because Psychotech leaders don't just react to change, they actively anticipate it. And they do this by weaving together 3 really vital traits. First up, Psychotech foresight. This lets you see the wave coming by combining market signals with human psychology. Second is adaptive resilience. Think of this as the cognitive flexibility that ensures you don't drown when that wave finally hits, allowing for much faster recovery times. And finally, innovation instinct. This is the practice of intelligent risk-taking. It's essentially how you build the surfboard to ride that wave towards scalable solutions. When you combine these 3, you turn uncertainty from a terrifying threat into a massive competitive advantage.
I really want to dwell on this powerful maxim for a second because it anchors this entire pillar. They do not merely manage the present, they engineer the future. We absolutely have to stop viewing resilience and innovation as optional nice-to-haves or as fun buzzwords for a quarterly retreat. In an era where AI is completely disrupting business models literally overnight and economic volatility is just the norm, these traits are foundational survival intelligence. Look, managing the present implies that the present is stable. Spoiler alert, it isn't. You have to actively build and engineer the future, or your organization is just going to be replaced by it.
Which leads us to Section 5. Execution, growth, and legacy. It's time to align our actions with our purpose.
All right, so you have the emotional stability, and you've got the foresight. But how do Psychotech leaders actually execute their vision and build teams that last? Well, execution is where the philosophy becomes reality. It requires focused execution. That means doing fewer things, but doing them exceptionally well, and completely eliminating distractions. But here's the secret. This laser focus only works when it's paired with people-first growth. Organizations only grow when their people grow. By adopting a growth multiplier mindset, you aren't just creating loyal followers to do whatever tasks you assign. You are actively creating independent future leaders. And wrapping all of this together is the absolute core trait of purpose-driven leadership, leading with true, deeply resonant meaning.
To really grasp that meaning, we have to recognize the stark difference between profit and purpose. Profit creates income, sure, but purpose? Purpose creates a legacy. In today's crazy landscape of endless digital noise, constant job hopping, and remote work detachment, why do top-tier employees actually stay with a company? It's purpose, plain and simple. Short-term financial gains are totally necessary to keep the lights on, obviously, but long-term sustainable human impact and highly ethical decision-making, that is what actually builds an institution. When your team clearly understands the why behind their late nights and all that hard work, their intrinsic motivation just takes over, and performance naturally skyrockets.
And finally, Section 6, the Daily Leadership Blueprint. Let's turn all this philosophy into actual daily practice.
We've talked extensively about high-level philosophy and organizational traits, but let's shift gears to how you actually put this into practice every single day. The Psychotech leadership formula is essentially a compounding stack of skills. It starts with self-mastery, then you layer on strategic thinking, add some deep human understanding, integrate technology wisdom, and finish it all off with execution excellence. The sum of all these equals extraordinary impact. Think about it. As AI grows stronger and takes over more and more technical, operational systems, this deeply human-centered leadership stack becomes exponentially more valuable. It is literally the one thing a machine cannot replace.
Supporting that formula is a set of 10 daily disciplines. Now, this isn't just a basic to-do list, it's a narrative of daily practice. It begins entirely internally, waking up and finding your clarity while practicing keen emotional awareness throughout your morning. Then it moves outward to how you interact, learning continuously, thinking strategically, listening deeply, and intentionally building up the people around you. Finally, it culminates in your output, using technology wisely to augment what you do, focusing your execution on what truly matters, pausing to actually reflect on your progress, and ultimately, aiming to create real impact. Small, intentional habits practiced every single day, that's what forges truly extraordinary leadership identities over time.
I want to pause right here and ask you directly. Are you managing the present or are you engineering the future? Take a really hard, honest look at your own leadership style today. In your day-to-day work, are you just running around, putting out fires, supervising tasks, and trying to survive until Friday? Or are you actively shaping the consciousness, the resilience, and the ultimate potential of the people around you?
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to close out our explainer today. Great leaders adapt to the changes around them, but Psychotech leaders, they transform the landscape entirely. I challenge you to take this blueprint, integrate these daily disciplines into your life, and become a true catalyst for human evolution in your own organization. Master the psychology, leverage the technology, and build a legacy that truly lasts. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.